Every morning the eastern sun struck the forum's marble, turning it a dull, burnished gold. Men in togas moved between temples and basilicas, stepping past merchants and petitioners. At the center stood the rostra, from which the fate of the Republic would be decided and eventually undone. In 133 BCE, Tribune Tiberius Gracchus brought a land reform bill before the assembly. Public land had quietly slipped into private hands for decades. Tiberius forced a vote. The Senate treated him as an existential threat. Violence erupted on the Capitoline Hill. Tiberius and hundreds of his supporters were killed. Their bodies were thrown into the Tiber. 10 years later, his brother Gaius followed the same path, building alliances and expanding grain subsidies. When he lost control of the streets, the Senate again reached for armed force. Gaius died in flight. The precedent was set. Political crises would end with citizens slaughtered. The wars that followed brought enormous wealth and rival commanders. Soldiers obeyed the man who paid and fed them, not the distant Senate. Lucius Cornelius Sulla marched his army into Rome itself in 88 BCE. Sulla ruled as dictator. Publishing prescription lists, men killed for their names or wealth. When Sulla resigned, the proof remained. One man could seize the city and purge enemies. Pompey the Great cleared the Mediterranean of pirates, then reshaped Rome's eastern provinces. He returned expecting land for his veterans, but the Senate blocked him at every turn. Marcus Licinius Crassus led an army east against Parthia, seeking military reputation. He was annihilated at Carrhae in 53 BCE. His death removed a counterweight. Julius Caesar spent a decade in Gaul, forging 10 loyal legions. When the Senate prepared to prosecute him, Caesar crossed the Rubicon in 49 BCE. The civil war lasted 4 years across 3 continents. Caesar crushed Pompey's forces. Pompey fled to Egypt and was murdered. Caesar aligned himself with Cleopatra. He returned to Rome, accumulating power, dictatorship, laurel wreath, a throne-like seat. On the Ides of March 44 BCE, senators produced hidden daggers in the theater of Pompey. Caesar fell under more than 20 wounds. His assassins cried liberty. The city shut its doors. No one rose to join them. Mark Antony delivered the funeral oration, watching the crowd burn Caesar's body. Octavian arrived in Italy, claimed the name Caesar, and declared himself a political force. Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus formed the Second Triumvirate, publishing new prescription lists. Cicero was killed, his head and hands displayed on the rostra where he had spoken. At Philippi, the Republic's last military resistance ended. Cassius and Brutus died. The victors divided the empire. Antony took the east, Octavian the west. Antony governed from Alexandria, relying on Cleopatra, portrayed as corrupted by foreign ways. Octavian stayed in Italy, building a solid domestic base. At Actium in 31 BCE, the two fleets met. Antony and Cleopatra fled. Octavian entered Alexandria. Both Antony and Cleopatra died by suicide. Octavian returned to Rome, holding more power than any Roman since the kings. In 27 BCE, he staged a theatrical restoration of power to the Senate and people. The Senate granted him the title Augustus, making him a monarch without the name. Augustus preserved republican appearances, controlling every meaningful outcome. He rebuilt Rome in marble, constructed forums, temples, and aqueducts. He established the Pax Augusta, enforced by legions and grain ships. In 09 CE, 3 legions were ambushed and destroyed in the Teutoburg forest. The Rhine became a permanent frontier. Augustus died in 14 CE. Power passed to Tiberius without civil war, the first peaceful imperial succession. Tiberius ruled cautiously through the Praetorian Guard. Treason trials filled the Senate. Caligula entered Rome, celebrated. Within months, senators learned to read his face. In 41 CE, the Praetorian Guard murdered him. Soldiers found Claudius hiding. Claudius launched the conquest of Britain in 43 CE. Queen Boudica led a massive revolt, burning London before legions crushed it. Nero came to power as a teenager. After his mother's murder and the Great Fire of 64 CE, revolt spread in 68 CE. Nero died by suicide. The Senate declared him an enemy. The year of the four emperors followed. Vespasian, backed by Eastern legions, secured the capital. His son Titus captured Jerusalem in 70 CE, destroying the Second Temple. The Colosseum rose on the site of Nero's lake. Domitian ruled with suspicion. The Senate chose the elderly Nerva, who adopted Trajan as heir. Trajan expanded the empire through Dacian wars and pushed east into Parthia. Hadrian drew firmer borders, including Hadrian's Wall in Britain. The empire reached its calmest period under Antoninus Pius and Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius died in 180 CE, passing power to his son Commodus. Commodus preferred the palace and arena, was murdered in 192 CE. Civil war returned. Septimius Severus marched from the Danube, reorganizing the Praetorian Guard. Caracalla extended citizenship to nearly all free. Inhabitants in 212 CE. Short reigns and coups followed until the crisis of the 3rd century. From 235 CE, soldiers repeatedly raised emperors from their own ranks. Germanic tribes raided across the Rhine and Danube. Sassanid Persians pressed from the east. Provinces broke away. Gallic Empire in the west. Palmyra under Queen Zenobia in the east. Aurelian reunited the empire by force in the 270s and built new walls around. Rome. Diocletian took power in 284 CE and divided the empire into a tetrarchy. Bureaucracy and taxes expanded dramatically. He launched the last great persecution. Constantine emerged victorious from civil wars. He favored Christianity. He founded a new capital at Byzantium, Constantinople. In 330 CE, after Theodosius I died in 395 CE, the empire permanently split. In 410 CE, the Visigoth leader Alaric sacked Rome after failed negotiations. The Western Empire continued losing territory through settlement, war, and accommodation. The Vandals seized North Africa and Carthage in 439 CE. Attila's Huns invaded Gaul and Italy before being checked at the Catalonian plains. In 476 CE, Odoacer deposed the last Western emperor, Romulus Augustulus. The Western Empire had ended. Imperial office in the West was gone. The Eastern Empire endured. Justinian reconquered North Africa and Italy. The plague of 541 CE devastated population and revenue. Heraclius defeated Persia, but both empires were exhausted when Arab armies swept out. Jerusalem fell in 637 CE, Egypt in the early 640s. Constantinople survived. The Great Schism with the Western Church came in 1054 CE. In 1204 CE, the Fourth Crusade sacked Constantinople. The restored empire after 1261 CE was much smaller, surviving through diplomacy. Ottoman power rose through the 14th and 15th centuries. By 1453, the empire had shrunk to the city itself. On April 29, 1453, Sultan Mehmed II began the final siege. The last emperor, Constantine XI, moved along the fortifications, encouraging his men. On May 29th, before dawn, the final assault broke through. Constantine died fighting near the walls. Ottoman troops entered the city. The Roman imperial line that began with Augustus ended in the city built to replace Rome.